I truly believe that with 21st century learning, it's a very forward-thinking type of curriculum. The nice part is that with Common Core, with things with Every Student Succeeds Act, now that NCLB is kind of fully put away, I think it really lends itself to the future of how our curriculum and, well, how we create our college and career-ready kids. And I think it's something that when we take a look at our needs assessment data and we go, okay, these are our gaps, or this is our proficiency areas we need to work on, I think 21st century skills and the 6 core competencies that you have within there really hit and hone in on all of those different techniques that we're trying to put into our classroom on a regular basis. And I think it's a very rigorous curriculum. And I think that when teachers and staff or administration is trained in that area, I think it can be something very, very powerful, like again, going forward and figuring out what's out there. We know that some of the jobs that are going to be the top 5, 6 jobs in 10 years don't even exist right now. And we see that all the time. So we have to get our kids ready. And I think 21st century learning really lends itself to doing that.
And we also see with those 6 core competencies that student engagement is at the core of 21st century learning. That's one of the big pieces of it. And we know that all research that we've seen in education shows that students are more engaged in the classroom are more likely to be successful as students, not only as students at that site, but also moving on to college and career readiness. And that's really, I think, the big piece is that student outcome. Is the student outcome about test scores in your classroom, which is a good measurable goal. You can see that achievement's happening, but ultimately, are we building students? Are we making sure that students, when they leave our campuses, are ready for the next step in their life, whether it be post-secondary education, whether it be military, whether it be a career? The 21st century, those 6 competencies allow students to become engaged in their own learning process. And I think ultimately it allows them also to be more responsible for their learning. You're giving kids the opportunity to take hold of their learning rather than the traditional, here is what you're learning. Kids have an opportunity to more engage that whatever that content may be and become more invested in what they're actually getting out of the classroom. Yeah, we have several schools that have adopted 21st century competencies as far as their action steps. Some schools have gone as far as to look to move their campus to a 21st century campus, and we've seen that as well. The great thing about 21st century is it's not necessarily, I think a lot of times people think, well, it's 21st century, so it's technology based. And what we've seen with the schools is it's not so much technology as it's skill based. We really want to improve student outcomes through student skill building. And so a lot of our schools have focused on that redesign of the classroom, completely redesigning the interior of the classroom so kids are more engaged, they have more opportunity to move around, they have more opportunity to sit in groups or with shoulder partners or however they're going to do it, but also to share with each other, collaborate with each other, and utilize those 6 core competencies, and not just so much that, oh, we have technology. So 21st century necessarily doesn't mean just technology. And we've seen a lot of schools move towards classroom design, but we've also seen schools go to flipping the classroom, to look at different ways to engage students in their own learning and engage the students throughout those competencies through collaboration, through the communication between the students, and those types of things we've seen a lot of. We do have schools that have gone to the one-to-one tech, which is outstanding. It's an opportunity, but the cool thing in the classrooms that we've observed with that one-to-one tech is it's not students with their heads buried in an iPad or heads buried in a computer. They're utilizing those as tools. They're part of the curriculum, but they're not the curriculum. And that's, I think, one of the cool things about 21st century is it really encourages this idea that it's not, we're going to teach computers today. You're going to learn how to do computer stuff today. What you're going to utilize is you're going to utilize the tools that we have provided for you. And one of those tools might be an iPad, it might be a computer, but ultimately the skills in 21st century, those 6 core competencies are what schools are focusing on more than we just want to buy technology so it looks good that we have technology at our site. We've seen schools really design their action steps like we spoke about earlier. It's hard to measure outcomes, I think, with when you say this is what the action is going to be. Ultimately, we want to measure that outcome, how that student achievement went up, but we've seen a lot more schools push those core competencies into their action steps. This is what the expectation is in our classroom. When we walk into a classroom, maybe as an administrator or a school leader, and observe what's happening in the classroom, these are the things we're looking at. And they look at those 6 core competencies as, do we see these happening in each of our classrooms? And that's really, I think, kind of the cool piece of this is that we're starting to see more of an embracing of the 21st century learning, because it's not it's not just technology. And I think people, once they start to understand that, once they really start to get a grasp on what it's teaching, really helps them kind of craft an action plan for how they're going to incorporate that in their classroom and how it's going to benefit their students in the long run.
You know, I think NDE has really pushed the ideas of systematic change and how we're looking at that and how we're measuring those things. And what's unique with 21st Century, it is a systems change. It's a change of environment, it's a change of culture. And I think that's why some of our administrators now are jumping on board, because they're seeing that this is the system we want to put in and this is how we're going to change our environment and our culture. And it's lending to a better place overall. And again, hitting a lot of the things that we were mandated to hit, or whether there are things in the future that we know that we have to make sure that we get our kids college and career ready for. So I think it's been a really nice piece that these administrators and schools have been really putting into the plans. It's been great to look at.
Staying with that theme, I think it really empowers students, but also empowers teachers to have an engaging classroom rather than, how am I going to plan for, a 50-minute period or an hour and a half period. If your students are engaged in the learning, the planning piece is still there, but the classroom is more dynamic. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen in the schools that we've observed with 21st Century action steps in their plans that are really kind of pushing this out. You see the difference. You can tell a classroom where students are engaged immediately that are using these 6 core competencies and really pushing the idea that students are empowered. They have that ability, they have that flexibility and that freedom to engage their learning, and I think what we always see with that is students take advantage of that. They take advantage of the opportunity to be empowered in their own learning, and I think that's really one of the cool things that we've seen from the schools that we've observed that have put these things in place.